Hello everyone, hope you're well. I'm going to do a video today that I've been thinking about for a while, and I know it's something that affects a lot of us. It definitely affects me, and I know I'm not alone. And that is the way I communicate with people and the reactions other people communicate to me, or the way I react to what I think is going on, is not always right. It's very rarely right in the important situations, and it's very frustrating because it affects how I communicate with people, or I over communicate, or I go over explain, and then they're like, "What on earth?" Or "That was a really weird way to put it." But it's because I hate the alternative, the getting it wrongs. Now, the reason I'm doing it now is for a really trivial reason, because I was playing Football Manager yesterday, and on stream, I had to decide what punishments my players got for things like missing training and getting red cards. And I was kind of like, look, if you get a red card in a game, that's football. I'm not going to be annoyed unless it keeps happening, and then we're going to talk. And if it keeps happening after that, you're going to get fined. With missing training, I was like, that's like missing work. You'll lose money. So I put that out there. It was quite lenient, but I kind of thought, you're adults. This is a game. It's a simulation. This is how I'd do it in real life. I'd say you're adults, and I want you to act like adults. And if you don't act like adults, I just won't play you. But the whole squad went nuts. And I was sat there going, I really don't understand why they went nuts. And everyone in the chat was like, well, of course they went nuts. They're expecting you to be, more authoritarian and blah blah blah. And I'm like, okay, this probably explains a lot about my teaching style when I was a teacher, because I kind of tried to give people the benefit of the doubt and you know get them to. I mean, I know it's only a game, but I used to be more like, look, I'm not that bothered if you're going to say something a bit silly. I want you to focus on your work. I'm just going to ignore the silliness, and it kind of worked for me. But I'm also wondering whether it really did, and whether I just wasn't very good at perceiving when it wasn't. So that made me start thinking. But what it also reminded me was also yesterday, I had new internet installed. I'm now on 1 gig broadband, 900 megabytes downloads, super uploads. This video is going to just be thrown at YouTube today. And when I rang, they're supposed to come by 1. And I rang them and I said, "Where's the guy? What's going on?" And while I'm on the phone to them, about 20 past 1, I got a phone call going, "Hi, it's the engineer." He was like, "Tried to ring you 3 times. You've not answered. Just checking one last time. Are you in? Do you want me to come?" And I was like, "Well, I've been waiting all day. You were supposed to be here between 8 and 1. I haven't had any missed calls." What I actually said was, "Oh, sorry, I haven't had any missed calls." And he literally jumped. He was like, "Well, I'll show you my phone when I turn up if you want." And I was like, "No, no, I'll take your word for it. You don't have to prove to me that you've rang me. Like, I mean, I definitely don't have any missed calls. I didn't say this, but definitely didn't have any missed calls. Definitely haven't done anything wrong. But I'll take your word for it, sir. On you come." He turned up and he was just like, "I did ring you and all that." I'm like, "Look, I'm not here to argue or whatever." And then I just felt like for the next hour or so, we were just pussyfooting around each other. I felt like he was just frustrated by me for something that I hadn't done, and I was trying super hard to be nice. Like he asked me why the other guy didn't install it when he was here, and I said, "I have no idea." I asked him if he could put the line down here, and I don't know. I just felt like I was bending over backwards, and I kept thinking, "You seem really annoyed with me. You seem to really not like me for some reason, and I don't know what I've done wrong." And it was just a whole bizarre thing. And then at the end, he shook my hand, and I thought, no, someone's not shook my hand in ages. He just was like, "Yep, yeah, cool, nice to meet you." Shook my hand, and I just thought, is he now realizing he's been a bit weird? But I just don't know. And the whole situation just felt uncomfortable and weird, and I couldn't figure out whether he'd just taken offense to the fact that I said he hadn't rang, which I didn't mean to say. I just was being honest. But I said something to him, and I wish I'd written down what I said, but I'd said something to him, and I went, "Not that I mean that." And he went, "No, it's fine. I understand. You're just being honest." And I thought, am I being honest? I don't know what I'm being honest about. I don't know what I don't know what the situation is. He absolutely threw me. The whole engagement was messy and weird. And then later that day, I did it again in another scenario. And this isn't just a list of scenarios, but I'm just building up to it really. I was sat here getting ready to do my stream, and I could hear Ollie and Claire disagreeing outside the room upstairs. And Ollie was like, "Right, that's it. I'm going. I hate this family. I'm moving out." And he came downstairs, and I heard him open the front door, and I leapt out the room. Basically, I'm like, I don't know, 4 meters from the door, maybe a bit more, and I'm pretty sure I jumped the whole lot. I was in such a like, ah, and I went out, and I was like, "Ollie, no, shut that door. Go back upstairs and talk to your mum." And obviously, I just waded into this, but it sounded like it was World War III. And Ollie was upset, and Claire texted me afterwards and just going, "What? Why did you get involved?" And I'm like, because it sounded like you were absolutely at each other about something and he was moving out, and I kind of just felt like that was a big deal. And she did say to me, like, today we had a chat and she was like, "Do you know what? I was just letting him let off." Like, she said she wondered where he was going to go, what he was going to do, and she just thought, "Huh, gutted. Like, enjoy yourself. You'll be pretty cold." Whereas I was kind of thinking, he's autistic, so like when he's saying he's doing something, he's not going to think, right, this is terrible. He's going to go and do exactly what he's saying he's going to do. He's not like when Emily says she's going to go do something, she's not going to go and do something else. She'll go do something else. She'll be making a show of it. He'll be literally saying what he's going to do. And that's, well, at least that's how I see it. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm literally doing what I'm going to do. And if someone reads into that, that's on them, because I've literally told them what I'm doing. So I was like, he's literally leaving and he's not going to stop or whatever. But he did say to Claire afterwards, when they had their little heart to heart afterwards, that he was planning on just sitting by the car, like he does when he sits out there with his friends, and he was just going to wait out there until she came out and got him. But I jumped up because my perception was World War III was unfolding and I needed to deal with it, and I wanted to help Claire, but I just made it worse. So I just don't really. It's just I find it hard to know what Claire needs with that kind of thing. Like, I'll decide she's in a bad mood and it'll turn out she's in a happy mood, or she's tired, or she's had a bad day. I always assume she's annoyed with me when she's absolutely not. And I know I've not done anything, but I'm assuming I have. And I just lead this ridiculous life where I assume that it's always me. I don't know why. Not with strangers. Like, if someone tweeted that they had a problem, I wouldn't think it was anything to do with me. I just mean if I'm in person. So my boss rang me and he was in an unhappy mood, I'd assume that he was unhappy about something I'd done or not done. But it might just be that he's not had a good day or whatever. And it's so hard to figure out because I don't really know what people are thinking. But I'm also learning from that thing with Claire, where I've waded in, unless I'd actually spoken to her, I don't know what people's thoughts are about. So this open reach man, I don't know what I actually did to bother him. Maybe I didn't do anything, but maybe I did, because he was properly at me for most of the time. I mean, he kept going from being really nice to being like I'd said something again, and I'm like, I really don't know what I keep saying or doing. It's just weird, but I get that he might have been having a bad day. He might have been clocking off at like 2, and you needed to get me out of the way. I had a meeting at 2, so I needed him out of the way. So it was kind of an awkward thing like that, but with that, I was just like, I don't know whether I was misreading his emotions. He might have just been worn out. He might have been fed up. He might hate his job. But with Claire, it's like I just don't know what emotion she's particularly feeling, and I assume they're all anger. I think, like, I thought I had quite a good grip on this. Like, I remember Ollie was doing a training thing at school over Skype during lockdown, where it was like, can you pick out disgust? Can you pick out shame? Can you pick out guilt? And I'll admit, there was a few there where I was like, that they all just look pretty much, like disgust or like sadness to me. And I remember in the deeping group I'm in, they were like that. It was like they were laughing because they were like, they all look like this. And I was like, yeah, I agree. Most of these, I could probably, if I really sat down and said I had to label them, I'd probably say, right, that's the one that you want to put the label of disgust on. But I don't know when I'm doing things that are bothering Claire or whatever, whoever, whether it's actually making them sad or disappointed or annoyed. And funnily enough, drawing it back to the Football Manager bit a little bit, in that scene when they're all annoyed with me, the chat told me to throw a chair across the room and tell everyone that I was disappointed with their reaction. And I was like, in real life, that would be a terrible thing to do. But in the game, it was like everyone just kind of went, bit of a neutral meeting overall. And I get that that's just a feeling ometer going up and down. But I feel like that kind of happens in real life as well. People don't seem to remember stuff or let stuff set in for as long term. I'll remember something and think, I don't really like that person. Didn't like the way they spoke to me that day or whatever. And I won't hold a grudge, but I'll have it in my head that they're a bit of a negative person. But then the rest of the world will just slowly forget about it. And I'm like, what about this time? Or what about that thing? Or I'm still not really, I'm still a bit bothered about it. I'm not saying it's a bad example because I'm not holding a grudge. I'm just thinking, my perceptions of things don't seem to fade over time, whereas other people's do. So I'm worried about something I did. I'm thinking, oh, they probably think I'm an idiot because I did that, and they're really happy. And I'm like, I don't understand what's changed. It's weird. It's bizarre and complicated. I feel like when I was meeting up with my friends, I have a couple of friends who may be on the spectrum, but they don't know. This came up when we were away. I've not really spoken to them properly about the fact that I am going for a diagnosis. But one of them, I think, is aware, The reason I think he's aware is because I'm reading too deep into what he said, but he said something along the lines of, he brought up the fact we did this test, we did the AQ test, and that is the one for children. So there is a version that I did with a doctor that was different questions, and I got a different score on, which is why they persisted with the process. But they got, so I got a score in the low 30s and they got a score in the mid to high 30s. So my mate brought this up and he was kind of like explaining why one of my friends is actually a bit difficult to kind of get straight answers from or read or whatever. So when we were away, they kept making assumptions like really silly things, like we were going to play board games and half the group went out into the garden. So my mate was like, they've already decided they're doing that, they don't want to play games, they've made it quite clear, so we're going to sit here. And I'm sat there going, I don't think they know we're playing games, they probably want to be involved. The other guy, so that was me saying that to the guy who was kind of in the mid 30s. The guy who was in the higher 30s went out and told him to come in. So then the guy who was in the mid 30s on the score was upset because he'd assumed they'd made it quite clear they weren't playing, so he'd picked a game for the amount of people that were there, and then literally everyone came in to play, and he had to tell them, "Oh, there's not enough spaces for you, or I'll play something else." And it completely derailed things because I disagreed with what he'd read from the situation, and I reckon I was probably right. He'd read from the situation and decided he'd just ignore them and do a game. And the other guy was like, I don't know what to do, so I'm going to go and ask him. And between the three of us, we'd basically caused this, not drama, but like messy scene of none of us knew what was going on. And I realised up until that very point, I'd always assumed my mate's assumptions were right. He'd say, like, I assume this with Kev as well. Kev and this guy will tell me, they all think this, so this is what we're doing, and I just assume that they're 100% correct in their assumption of the scenario, and accept it as given, and then let tasks unfold as they do. We learned in that scenario that my mate probably wasn't right, but if we hadn't have intervened, it would have been fine. And that's probably what's been happening all this time. I've learned is that the fact I didn't intervene, just let it play out as it would. But if I'd said something, it might have turned out that I was correct, but the situation might have gone a bit funny, and it messed with my head. So, because I know not all situations are the same, but that is what I'm learning. I'm learning that maybe I should just speak out, and sometimes I might be right, sometimes I might be wrong. It's worth seeing. But I've always been too nervous to kind of go, I think you're wrong. And in that point, it wasn't really important. Another one of my friends was constantly jokey lying about stuff, or he'd say something, and it was to the point where I genuinely didn't know when he was lying or when he was telling the truth or when he was joking or when he was serious. And there were several points over the weekend where I really wanted to say to him, I don't think you realize how hard I'm finding this. Everyone else in the room knows you're joking, knows you're not serious, knows you're having a laugh. And I'm sat here thinking I've offended you constantly. And then when you are offended, I'm just laughing and telling you to shut up because I think you're joking. And it's a minefield that I can't get right. And I didn't say it in the end because I just thought, you know what, it will open a can of worms I don't really want to get into. But it made me laugh because he was just constant. I mean, even to the point where I brought up someone that my mate used to go out with, another mate used to go out with, and this guy was like, why'd you bring her up? Like, bloody hell, she's really important to him and he's really cut up about the situation. And I was like, I genuinely don't know whether you're joking. And I left it for like half an hour before realising he was genuinely telling the truth. And I had to go and have a bit of a chat with my mate to say, I'm really sorry. Didn't know it was that serious. I felt like everyone was joking when they brought it up, but actually I can see that I think you're quite upset. And we just had a chat and he it was fine. But I realised though, reviewing that, thinking about that afterwards, and this is the exhausting thing, I just want to acknowledge the fact that I have to sit and review this stuff and learn from it is mental. I'm assuming that typical people don't do that. I'm assuming any of you watching, like my mum and dad might be watching, my sister might be watching, and they probably don't have to sit and review conversations and events and figure out what went wrong. But I realised that in that same scenario, the mate who jokes all the time and you're never sure whether he's serious, I literally go to the nth degree to solve this. I joke all the time, even whether it's serious, whether I'm annoyed. Maybe not when I'm annoyed, I'm just outright annoyed, but I joke so much, it's ridiculous. So they just assume everything. Even if I make a mistake or I say something that's fundamentally dumb or fundamentally wrong, they assume I'm joking and that I'm not that stupid, which is quite handy because sometimes I've said stuff that's really wrong on a topic, or I've mixed up a name or whatever, and they've just assumed I was joking and it's been part of the joke. And I'm like, no, I was just well off, but they don't know. So I feel like that's been quite handy for my friendship groups, but I couldn't get away with that in my marriage or, with the open reach man or at work. At work, I feel like I'm missing a whole element of politics that is complicated. We had a just to, I can't go into too much detail because obviously it's work, but we had a meeting yesterday, and there was like a question just asked off the cuff, and to me that's an off the cuff question. Yep, brilliant. Let's have a chat about it. I'm listening to the chat. I'm feeling like they're making point A and the bosses aren't understanding the point they're making. So I just interjected and very precisely, clearly explained, as far as I was concerned, what I felt the disconnect was. And that caused everything to get worse because it was like, I feel like they probably knew that. They were just trying to move away from it. And I feel like they knew the conversation was going to be going the way it was going to go. And the fact that I'd been very precise about it and said it a different way meant neither of us could really shy from that. And the conversation had to be had. And it just went on. And I was just like, I don't think I'm qualified to have these discussions without, I'm too on the nose. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't being subtle. I was being very outright. I'm not afraid to say the absolute truth. I wasn't rude. I was very clear and precise. And I kept caveating, and you might misunderstand me this way. That's not what I mean. I don't mean this. And I could see the guy following me talking, thinking, why is he branching out these points? I'm almost talking and then putting stuff in brackets during my verbal sentence. If I was writing it out, it would have looked right. But I'm verbally putting brackets, going, I don't mean that, and not this bit, and ignore that bit over there, and and I know we talked about this before, and then getting to my point, and he's like, okay, yeah, fair enough. And then I can see him thinking, well, my plan was to just like knock this into the long grass and come back to it tomorrow or forget about it. But you've kind of put me in a, yeah. And I just realized I don't know. I don't know how many times I've done that over the years without realizing. And what that leaves, I don't, because the guy that I was talking to is a boss that is relatively new. So I'm kind of like, what does he now think of me? Does he think I'm really bizarre for not taking the hint and stopping? Is it in the past I've been told it's a good thing that I persevered with these questions, but in other times I think it's probably not the right context for it. We had a new CEO start, and I literally asked him. I didn't ask him, but I said it in a way that his answer would make it clear to me. I told him, I'm used to being able to speak to whoever in the company I need to speak to at any point about anything, and I was like, I assume that at no point should I be ringing you about anything really. And he was like, no, pretty much. And I was like, okay, that's good to know, because if I hadn't have asked, I'd have probably been ringing him going, this doesn't work, or that's a problem. And he'd be like, what? No, I'm like 9 places above you at least, probably more like 15. But I needed to ask. I just felt like they always go, oh, if you need anything, ask. If you need anything, talk to me. And I'm like, you don't mean that, so why are you saying it? And that's how he was. He wanted to meet everyone. He wanted to have lunch with everyone. He wanted to get a feel for the company. And I was like, well, I just want to make sure that this is basically the first and last time we're speaking, right? Because if it is, then okay, cool. If I need to talk to you in future, maybe I need to, I don't know. It just seemed like a weird situation. So I don't know. It's weird. I guess to sum it up, I don't know how I'm supposed to react to things, and I react to them, and then everyone's like, that wasn't right. And I'm like, I don't understand why that wasn't right, and I have to fix it. That's weird. I often wonder how many times people have actually thought, what the hell? Like, I get that sometimes I'm annoyed about stuff. Like, they don't know that I'm annoyed, and I go, I'm annoyed, rah! And they're like, what the hell? But that can be a mixture of things. That can be a not knowing how to, put it out there. That can be they didn't realize I've gone from 0 to 10 over the course of like an hour, and they're suddenly just noticing. I don't know whether I've completely misunderstood situations and then created. It's a minefield, and I'm not really worried about what I kind of leave behind in terms of their perception of me too much, because I guess the people that don't like me in the world have never spoken to me because of that. But I do wonder, the people that I have to deal with day to day, like what my colleagues think of me. I feel like the ones that speak to me like me, but I do notice little things like we'll be chatting and they'll go, "Oh, do you know what? I've got a meeting coming up. I got to go now, mate." And I'm like, "You ain't got a meeting." I've just gone off on a tangent. And there'll just be bits like that. And I know that some of them understand that I used to get wildly confused and get annoyed, but it's such a minefield. I don't really know, other than joking with my friends, which masks a lot and just is entertaining and fun. And then we just do real talk when we need to do real talk, and the rest of it's just jokes. I don't really know what else the answer is. With Claire, I just always ask her outright, "Are you okay? Is everything all right?" If I think she's got a problem, I'll say, "Are you annoyed with me?" But then I feel like I'm a child because I'm going, "Are you annoyed with me? Have I done something wrong?" And I feel like she'd say, "Well, yeah, you should know that." Do you know what I mean? I think she understands me enough, but I do outright ask because I feel like honesty is the best way. Um, I don't know whether I'm missing anything with the kids so much. I always outright ask Emily at the moment. I'm like, "Is everything all right? Are you stressed about anything? Is anything wrong?" Because I feel like she's going to start hiding it as a teenager. I'm not going to be able to read it, and I'm heavily reliant on Claire figuring it out, and that's not fair on Claire. So I'm nervous about that. But I do outright say to her, "You all right with your friends? You're not having any arguments or anything? Everyone all right? No one's bullying you? Stuff like that, just to check." And she's like, "No, no, all good." And I'm like, "Would you tell me if you were? I don't know." But it's a minefield, and it's only going to get more of a minefield. But I mean, the fact that I've realised I don't know is helpful. I don't really know where to go to learn more or what to do. Um, and yeah, a lot of this has been kind of. I made notes. I made a list of topics I wanted to talk about, but a lot of this had just flowed straight from my brain to out of my mouth, and I don't really know how to add that little stopgap in the middle. I don't have that little stopgap in the middle, and like people who know me know that is a problem, and it kind of goes all right. I feel like autopilot's working okay, but this was supposed to be a 10-minute video, and we're at 20, so that's that also covers a lot of it up. I genuinely thought I could probably keep this to a tight 10 minutes, but yeah, long story short, I don't really know how to do that, and yeah, conversations and perceptions are weird, and yeah, tips in the comments below. What do you do? How do you navigate it? What is the answer? How do we figure this out? Is it something that we just literally never do? And some people are going to think I'm a moron. Some people are going to think that I'm an arsehole. And I didn't mean to particularly swear there, but I'm hoping that's the light level of swearing. I don't really know. I don't really understand why swear words offend people, if I'm honest, other than the fact that we shouldn't say them in front of like priests and stuff for some reason. And yeah, other than that, let me know your thoughts. Let me know how you're going. How did your weekend go? How is your week going? What are your plans? I've got my injection in the morning, so I'm a little bit out of it as well. I got my testosterone injection. I am currently flagging a bit. I got asked my date of birth and I couldn't remember the year I was born. So that shows you my mental state at the moment. But I've got that first thing tomorrow, and hopefully I will feel like Superman by the end of the day. So yeah, hope you're all well. Let me know your thoughts and everything, and I'll catch you soon. Cheers.